Welcome one and all to the first ever episode of Kings of War Wednesday. Season review, rankings, season review, Kings of War Masters, season review, all of the above. Hello there. So, Kings of War Wednesday, what is that, you may ask? Well, it's pretty obvious really. I'm going to try and do a Kings of War video every Wednesday. Won't always be a live stream. So, whichever Kings of War topics you want to see me discuss and analyse and deeply probe, no Kings of War crevice will be left untouched, if prompted. So, point me at something in Kings of War and I will attack it from all sides. For this premiere episode, we're going to have a look at this season's rankings. Now, technically, this season isn't actually over yet, although Clash of Kings has just taken place, which to me signifies the end of a season. And if we look at the actual rankings page here, you can see that obviously there's a bit of a gap due to the whole world situation, but for some reason they're not just ending the season in November this year. Apparently it's going all the way through to January, so Clash of Kings won't actually end the season if that is correct. But because Clash of Kings has taken place, I'm going to choose now to do my analysis. So prior to Clash of Kings, which I didn't actually attend, I was in 3rd place, I believe, and you can see now that I've dropped down to 6th. So we're going to analyse a few of the stats here and discuss this rather turbulent Kings of War season, because obviously it was interrupted for a vast period of time. And if we have a quick look just at this page first, so one thing that jumps out immediately, I've got quite a nice podium rate there, using 2 different factions, so 50% podium rate. Not many people with multiple tournaments have got better than that. There are quite a few people who just attended one tournament in the entire season and just happened to podium at that one event, so you can't really judge them. But clearly, the standouts, we've got Mr. King there with 8 podiums out of 11 events, and if you look at his results page, then you'll see that most of those podiums are in fact wins, and not just in tiny tournaments either. Look at this, like 28, 47, 48, lots of big numbers, not just a lot of podiums in 10 player events, which are obviously good, but can be misleading in the stats. Not in this case though. Some very large tournaments were won by the King of War. And then if we go down to just outside the Masters places, the Masters generally cuts off at 16, but I think this year is going to be slightly different because they're also including the best in faction as well, which I currently am actually the best in faction for Abyssal Dwarves, spoiler alert, but it depends what's left in this season and if they are really cutting it off in January or not. So currently as it stands, because of the worldwide situation presumably, there's one notable name here, Mr. Robinson, who has only played in 4 events, and one of those was the Masters, which doesn't score you any points at all, so just 3 events, which means that he's not currently in the Masters spots. But look at this, won every single event attended, so obviously the elite of the elite there, one of those being Clash of Kings that just took place. So the others pretty small events, so maybe you'd think nothing exciting going on there, other than the fact that it doesn't look like he lost a game all season out of those 4 events, including an 87 player event there, so very impressive. And so that's where it currently cuts off in the top 16, if that's how the Masters is still working. But I found myself in 6th place, and let's have a look at my stats here. So some of these are horribly misleading and inaccurate, and I'll go into why in a minute, because one of the tournament results that's been inputted into the system is just wildly wrong and a blatant lie. So we're going to have to start a campaign to get that changed at some point. But podium rate 50%, that's accurate. Now my number of wins and losses is not accurate at all. The wins should actually be 1 higher and the losses should be 1 lower. And all these other things are skewed because of that as well, apart from factions played obviously and highest kill rate. I'm sure that's correct. But even total kill points I think is actually wrong on my personal page. So ranked 6 out of 235 players. Nice overall score. Win rate is wrong, kill rate is wrong. So if we look at my factions, Abyssal Dwarves used 5 times, podium twice, Goblins used once, podium once. Solid there for the Goblins, and Abyssal Dwarves, obviously one of those losses should be a win. That's just a lie. And I'm first out of 24 Abyssal Dwarf players, ranked third out of 17 Goblin players. Okay, that's pretty impressive considering I've only got one event. Is that even? That can't be right. Let's have a look. Apparently it is correct. I don't think I'm going to be able to beat that though with the remaining events in this season, if there are in fact any. So I don't think I'll be going for that particular trophy. So let's have a look at the actual individual events themselves. So it was a really weird season, not only because of the big long interruption for the pandemic and whatnot, but we've also got this tournament here. It's Cold Up North Tournament 2019. This was actually a 2nd edition tournament, and all the other events were 3rd edition. So I did get a podium spot in this final ever 2nd edition tournament with my Abyssal Dwarves. So let's start off looking at that one. So, and interesting to point out here, the only games that I didn't win in this tournament were both against the eventual winner. Because there was only 10 players and 5 rounds, it was fairly inevitable that some people would end up playing the same person more than once with the way the tournaments are organised and how you play against the next highest in points at that moment. So I did actually defeat Mr. King in 2nd place there when we played, but then that put me up against Mr. Hobday's Ratkin for the 2nd time, and I was only able to get a draw and a loss against them. So put me into 3rd place, and at this event I actually scraped 3rd place on kill points over the 4th placed elf player there. Look, our stats are identical. I believe our tournament points were identical as well, so it was just kill points that nudged it in my favour. So that was a nice end to 2nd edition, and I think that was my 2nd Abyssal Dwarf trophy, because I would have to go back to the end of the previous season. Let's just have a look at that. So the previous season, which I'm not going to go into too much now, but that's where I actually won a tournament, you can see. And I actually started the Abyssal Dwarves here, so I did get a podium at Last Chances, which was just before Clash of Kings. And that army, for that tournament there, that my previous Abyssal Dwarf podium place, that army was pretty much painted on the eve of the tournament. Something like a quarter of the army, it wasn't finished yet. So that was thrown together at the last minute, because I wasn't actually planning to attend that tournament until the last minute. There was just an opening. And then Clash of Kings, I did pretty well there, if you recall, especially considering it was a new army at the time. So let's go back to this season now. So, solid start. Then we go into 3rd edition, which I felt like I was at a slight disadvantage compared to some of the players in there. A lot of them had been play testers, and people had practiced a lot more than I had, so I wasn't overly confident going into that new edition. So I actually think it went pretty well for me there. Managed to get 5th place, 3 wins and a loss, which is quite solid, I think you'll agree. And kill points though, I felt was quite low, so 53% for this event. So what kind of list did I have there? We can actually have a look at that here. So, regiments of Mortal Guard, Half-Breeds, Golems, Gargoyles, Greater Golem, a Mortar, Ironcaster, Basusu, Brachy. So it's not really vastly different from the kind of list I would be running right now with Abyssal Dwarves. Just for some reason didn't manage to kill a lot during that tournament. But still won enough games to finish in 5th place. So I was satisfied with that as a start to 3rd edition. Then we get my first podium place of the edition, which was at Winter Wonderland with a record of 3 wins, no defeats and no draws. Now, you might think, well, surely that means you win the tournament, but there were 28 players there. So you'll see that 3 players managed to get 3-0-0 records. So obviously only one of us was going to finish first. And of the 3 though, I actually killed the most, so it was just down to the margin of victory in the scenarios. Certain tournaments factor in kill points quite highly in adding to your tournament score. Others, they favour margin of victory in the scenario, so victory points. And I think that was one of these occasions where, had this been a different event, I'm sure people would have picked different lists and played differently, but had kill points been factored in highly, then I could have snuck into 1st place at an event like this. I think someone else got even more points than me. in kill points. Yeah, look at that. Order of the Green Lady army there. 82.8% compared to my 81%. So very satisfied with that. 3 solid wins there. And a trophy. First 3rd edition trophy. Still with the Abyssal Dwarves. And look at that vast difference in the kill rate, and compare that to the list I've got here. So, Decimator Regiment, Immortal Guard, Half-Breeds, Golems, Gargoyles, Obsidian Golem, 2 Mortars this time, Basusu, Bracky, and Ironcaster. So I think the points level was just a little bit higher for this tournament. Because, yeah, 2,250. So with that I got the Decimators and another Mortar, I think. And I've probably messed around with some of the upgrades for the units as well. But just a little bit of extra spice. Then let's go on to the next event. Now this was Leap of War, and there's no record there, but I think I did quite well at this as well. As you can see, 4 out of 18. Pretty solid, if I don't mind saying so myself. I think I was actually really unlucky in this event not to finish in the top 3. It just happened that I think there was a combination of factors, that certain games were draws which allowed certain people to hog the podium spots, I think. I'm not sure if there was a draw in the last round that prevented me from... Normally you get a chance to overtake somebody from the top table if you're on the second table. Whoever loses, especially if it's at a tournament where one of the top elite players is there and just crushes whoever they face, whoever's the unlucky one to face them in the last round, and then someone else can hop over them into the podium spots. But I think, I'm not sure if it was a draw or just both players scored really highly on table 1, which meant that the players who finished 3rd and 4th weren't able to jump any higher than they actually ended up here. But as far as a win rate, since it's not here, I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure it was pretty tasty. And you can't argue with losing out to a fellow Abyssal Dwarf player, who incidentally, Mr. Fellows there, if we look at the Abyssal Dwarves, is actually doing well, but only went to 3 events with them. 2 podiums out of those 3 though. So, had he played in more events, could have potentially overtaken me there. There's still time, I suppose. Mr. Shackleford there, 10 events, only 1 podium. So he's given it a really good go, but can't get best in faction unless he gets an improved score next time before the season ends. So I was fairly satisfied with that one, and lists aren't featured here, but I remember pretty sure this is the first event where I took the Ancient Winged Half-Breed with the Overmaster on it. So a big flyer, just to look impressive. And I did not win Best Army though, which I was hoping I might be in with a chance at that. Because there are a couple of people in the community, and when you see their name on the tournament list, you think, okay, I'm definitely not winning Best Army at this event, because look who's there, and you know they're a painting beast. At this one, I felt, depending which armies certain people brought, and what they were judging on, who was doing the judging, I felt I could have been in with a shot at this one. Because there's none of the names that immediately stand out as just like a painting god. And there are some of those in the community. So, next event, if we go to... So, March of the Great Armies of Panathor. Oh, by the way, it should be pointed out as well, I think at Cold Up North, let's see, I'm pretty sure it was Cold Up North, where, yeah, look at that, I shared the Best Painting Award, but I didn't actually get a trophy for it, because I already had a trophy, so it seemed fair that the lower ranked player would get the actual painting trophy. That was the way they chose to do it anyway. So I got some recognition there, but no trophy. March of the Great Armies of Panathor, which I call the most crooked event of all time. And not because there was anything dodgy going on with who won the tournament or anything, but for the travesty that one of my results has been input incorrectly, meaning that the blatant win that I had is actually down as a loss. I beat Mr. McKee here, whose one win should have been a loss, and I think our kill points were also reversed. So I actually think that he probably should have got the wooden spoon at that event, which, depending how you look at it, I think there's probably a little prize for getting the wooden spoon, so it could have been cheated out of a prize. But it was input incorrectly, so I should have finished way higher up, and I shouldn't have actually faced some of the people I did face in the tournament as well because of that. My win was put down as a loss, and obviously just anyone can claim that they should have won a game that was put into the records as a loss, but as you know, I've got picture proof of everything that happened in the game, and it wasn't quite a tabling. I think he had one unit left or something at the end with his abyssals. I think he had a unit of maybe succubi sitting on an objective or something, but I held multiple other objectives. I had a lot of units left on the table, so my kill rate should actually be higher, which affects my season stats overall. And this was at Black Dragon Miniatures. Yeah, there we go. Black Dragon Miniatures. And obviously disgraceful that that result is not correct, and clearly it would have bumped me up at least a couple of spots and not been quite so embarrassing as to leave me in 19th place. Overall, it wasn't a very good tournament for me. I'm not going to say necessarily it was the worst performance, because I did win a game and there was a draw as well, so it wasn't horrible by any stretch of the imagination. But obviously, clear, the rules committee have got it in for me. The Masters Committee. The Masters Committee is different from the Rules Committee, isn't it? Yeah, so the Masters Committee have got it in for me. And let's have a look at the list that I had here. So Black Soul Horde. So I moved away from Immortal Guard here to fit more in, because it was only at 2,000 points now. Gargoyles, Half-Breeds, Golems, 3 Mortars, Great Obsidian Golem, Hexcaster with Weakness, Ironcaster, and the Overmaster and Ancient Winged Half-Breed. So I've moved away from Braki and Basusu at this point, who I think are actually mainstays when I'm trying to be competitive in this army. But I wanted to try out 3 Mortars at an event. It didn't go as well as some of the previous events though. So again, I should be a little bit higher than it actually says here. So anyone who is in Black Dragon Miniatures, make sure that you have some kind of sign that you can hold up protesting that the result that's been input here is overturned and that I have the rightful win on my record, which I've got picture-based evidence to prove. So then, of course, there's a little bit of a gap. March 2020 to September 2021. I wonder what could have caused that huge gap in tournament play. And then we've got It's a Troll 4-foot snake. And if you see here, I managed to finish 3rd. So the first tournament I'd been to in about 18 months or so, it was the same for a lot of people there. And solid performance, I think you'll agree. The Abyssal Dwarfs went away though. Goblins. And this was a 2,000 point tournament. And that was in my thinking when deciding which factions to take. Because Abyssal Dwarves, the units I have, I think it favours a larger point limit. At 2,000, in this edition with Abyssal Dwarves, I feel like I'm missing things when I'm putting the list together. It feels like I don't have all the tools at my disposal that I would like. So I went for Goblins, which meant that I could go for a really troll-heavy list, way more trolls than Goblins. So it was somewhat similar to the list that I actually took to the tournament I won with Goblins a few years ago. I say a few years ago, but it was only in the previous Kings of War season, just because of that huge gap. But that was only 1,250 points that event, but I had 3 troll hordes in it, which was a lot. This one I've got 4 troll hordes. This list here. The kill points pretty close between the various top players there. So very pleased to come in the podium spots here, and it was worth a lot of points as well when you consider 38 players in a 5-game event. So let's have a look. Oops. Let's have a look at my list for this one. So this is the first time Goblins had come out this season. Rabble Horde, 4 hordes of trolls, 3 trombones obviously, 2 giants, king, whiz, 2 troll bruisers. So it's just lots of combat beasts, loads of trolls, bruisers and giants, and then everything else is just support, or the goblin rabble are just there to get in the way of stuff, or to provide unit strength or whatever they need to for a cheap points cost. War trombones support, king support, wizard support, everything else just combat meat fest. No real chaff in the army unless you count the rabble horde. So that did very well and got me a very respectable 3rd place with only 1 loss, and the player that defeated me did not manage to finish in the top 3, which is always nice. When you manage to bounce back from a loss and then leap ahead of whoever beat you, especially to get a trophy. So that was nice. I also got trophy for the Best John as well, one of the special characters for the event. So dual trophy wielding on the way out of that one. Very nice. And obviously I didn't go to Clash of Kings this year. There was a combination of factors that led to that. But I would have liked to have gone, obviously. Hopefully I'll be able to go next year. And if this season isn't actually over, let's see what's likely to happen if we look at the rankings here. If there are a couple more tournaments within this season, as it's suggested here, if this season is going to end in January. So, oops, what have I done? There we go. So, what's likely to happen? Well, I'm probably not going to move around a great deal. There will be at least a couple of players that could potentially shoot up ahead. I'm going to look for people that haven't got many events, but are doing well with their score. So, we're looking for, particularly, this guy right here. Another big tournament win, and he'll jump above quite a few people. And who else is not on that many tournaments? There are a lot of people with way more than me, with lower podium percentages, and it's not like I've only got podiums at small events here. If you look, 28 players, 38 players, so pretty solid, and that 10 was the last one in 2nd edition, so kind of there should be a line drawn under there between the 2 editions almost. So in this edition I've got 2 podiums out of 5, which pretty solid. So that's a little look at the rankings here. Who's likely to slip out of the top 16 actually? I'm looking people right on the edge who have maybe got lots of tournaments under their belt already. Looking these kind of people around here who could slip out and be overtaken and bumped out of the spots. Oh yeah, we want to have a look at best in race actually, don't we? So, Abyssal Dwarves. Nope, we've got it on the wrong season. There we go. So, you can see Abyssal Dwarves, I've currently got best in race, which obviously can change if there are more events to come. And has anyone got multiple best in race awards this season? I'm scrolling down. Oh yeah, Mr. King has got Halflings and Undead at the moment. Halflings have obviously only been to 1 event, I think. So, could potentially end up with 2 best in race, which would be greatly deserved with all the wins he's got this season. Has anyone else got 2? Can't see any names immediately that are jumping out. I know some of the factions aren't qualifying for a best in race trophy because not enough tournaments have been played with them. And I wonder if they're going to do the little plaques again. Because I got one in... was it this season? Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. League of Rordia. I got best in race for that season, so that was nice. Which I played for the entire first half of that season. And... yeah, I don't see... not jumping out at me any obvious doubles apart from already mentioned. So... nice potential prizes there. So let's have one more look at... let's go for awards. So, currently best in race. Awards: a 3rd place, a Best John, a 2nd place, a 3rd place, and a joint painting award for this season. So, cool. Achievements, multi-kill. Some of these should probably be unlocked that haven't been because of the slight issue, shall we say, with the result that was incorrect. And obviously haven't got winner chicken dinner, haven't won an event this season yet, there might still be time. And history. So this is an interesting one to track, and I'll go more into this in a future one as well and look at my entire tournament history and how it's improved over time. But you can see, just in general, started out, you just got to keep going to events and see what happens, really. Not everyone can podium, obviously, but if you keep sticking at it, eventually, you never know. So the first 2 seasons, there were 16 tournaments, there only 1 podium in all that whole time. So some people might be put off by that if they're losing a decent amount, It's not like I was finishing bottom though. I think I've only ever had one wooden spoon, and that was the first time I ever played League of Rawdia at an event. But then, going into this season, starts to look a bit more impressive. 2 podiums out of 6. Then, this season was obviously a massive one for me. I went to 12 events during that period. 5 podiums in there, including a tournament win, which is obviously very nice. And then this season, 3 out of 6, which is very solid. And if we look at my placings there, solidly in the top 25 for those 2 first years. Then 4th, which was obviously very nice indeed. Then 9th that season, which again, solid. And then currently in 6th place, so very pleased with that. And we'll go more into the progression of my tournament play in a future episode of Kings of War Wednesday. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me talk about, whether there are any tactical issues, anything during games that comes up that maybe you struggle with and you want to ask. Obviously one of the Kings of War maestros. I mean, look at this, in 6th place. And I'm obviously no stranger to giving away all my tactics on video, since I've been doing that non-stop. Since I started going to tournaments, every single one of them's got a video on it, with me breaking down all my tactics in detail. And people have come up to me at events before and said, hey, I just used that strategy I saw in one of your videos last week, and I used it on that guy. One specific one, I can remember someone came up to me and told me that they'd put an individual on the corner of some difficult terrain to stop a unit from travelling through it when they were making a charge, which is something that I'd covered in a video just prior, which is not something I innovated. I'd seen someone else do it, but the fact I'm there talking about it, and as far as I'm aware, there aren't many of the higher ranked Kings of War players that actually do full in-depth video breakdowns of all their games. So I like to think of myself as a good resource for people, and let me know what you'd like to hear about. Obviously, if there's something really spicy and newsworthy, like a new army comes out, then I'm probably going to be all over that for an episode, if I'm going to keep enough content to generate a weekly episode for this. Some of them will be live, some of them won't. I'll probably have to make a nice logo for this show as well. Let me know if you like the little song playing in the background as well the whole time. I've noticed that some of the channels that sustain people's engagement a bit more tend to put music playing all the way through. I've asked people before and they said, no, we don't want music, we just want your lovely soothing voice. But then the video views would suggest that people actually do like a bit of music there. Interesting. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see in this series. And yes, my enthusiasm for Kings of War has been boosted by watching a couple of the Clash of Kings games on the live stream. So my Night Stalkers are going to be one of my priority creations. It's an army I'm making with the rules in mind for, is it preferred model count? I think that's what it's called. The amount that Mantic want you to have in order to be in with a chance at winning one of their big prizes. So it's not going to be an entirely Mantic model army, because I've already got this hideous thing, which is clearly a GW giant with a load of Mantic bits and various other bits slapped on it. But most of the army is going to be entirely Mantic, and enough models on the base to actually qualify for those prizes. So enthusiastic, back on the Kings of War train, looking forward to playing more games. I can even try halflings with my undead halflings. Wouldn't that be a treat? Not sure I can put out an army the likes of which people were using at Clash of Kings though, with the kind of halfling air force, but I think that's going to get nerfed soon anyway. So I've actually got a live comment, because this one has been going out live. David says, I don't mind music and I find simple stuff better than too crazy, and the volume to voice ratio is vital. Yes, I did test that out beforehand to make sure that the music volume was way below my voice and it wasn't going to get too annoying. That sometimes catches you out though, if you start it and then the actual song you've chosen has a really wild, loud bit in the middle of it that you didn't catch on the first listen. But hopefully that's not the case here. I've been keeping one eye on the volume bar and it seems to be pretty consistently below my voice, so hopefully this one's been fine. And that's going to do it for this episode. So if you want to ask any questions about the ranking system, or if you've got any comments on it, drop them in there. any suggestions for future episodes, anything at all really, put it in there. I will respond to your comment either in the comment section or via the next episode. Because obviously the Andy and Rem show, which is on every Tuesday, is typically more Age of Sigmar and Warhammer focused, so it's nice to have a specific Kings of War show, and maybe I'll actually involve other people in this show as well, get guests, some interviews. Basically it's going to be any kind of Kings of War content, and you're going to get it at least once a week. So with that, don't forget to like, subscribe and all that stuff. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description. Don't forget to send me all your money, obviously, to keep this channel chugging along like the train that it is. Train illuminating the darkness. It's like a train with a lighthouse on its back, illuminating these dark, gloomy hobby times for everybody, and bringing you out the other side of the tunnel of hobby misery into the promised land of hobby enlightenment and tactical fulfillment and all that good stuff. You get the idea. Give me your money and it'll keep the channel chugging along nice and strong. Until next time, all that remains to be said is good night out there, whatever you are.